I don't know if you were here the last 2 nights. I missed Friday, but last night it was, I don't know the right word. I wanted to say honking, exciting, but I don't know, that doesn't make much sense probably to you. But it was just exciting to see so many people. Elder Jeffrey said maybe more than 400 people. When I went out of it was at MLK if you weren't here, and I went out and each of the 3 parking lots seemed to be just jammed full. And many of you young people were here last night. There was a number of new people that were here, young teens. There were some teens that had been part of our youth group at some point that we hadn't seen in a while. And so that was exciting, you know. And so for a few parents that are in here, you know, I know it was a kind of Chinese evangelistic meeting, but fun is kind of a key piece of the teen life. You know, a lot of life is not fun. And it's serious, and they're studying, and they're working hard, you know. And for some kids, they would just never come to church. You know, they're not going to come if you invite them over and over and over again. But they might come and play basketball, and then when you're playing basketball in between, you can talk to them and engage with them. And I had a lot of fun doing that last night, and praying for some of the kids that were there that they'll be a part of what God's doing here. So today, I don't know if these stands tend to go down, so I apologize. We're going to look at a common lie that many of us wrongly believe. And here's the lie. The lie is, this is just the way I am. This is just the way I am. I've tried to change, but I just can't. Maybe some of you have felt that way, right? Maybe you feel that way right now. So we have a neighbor, one of the neighborhood kids, and he told Emmett. Now, Emmett's name, thank you, Wade. Emmett's name, does anybody know the Hebrew word for Emmett, right? The Hebrew word for Emmett is truth. And so Emmett's name means truth, and I tell him that almost every night. Emmett, I'm praying that you'll be a man of truth. And he knows, you know, Emmett, what does your name mean? Truth. He's 4, you know, he's almost 5. And so my neighbor tells him, there's a snake that lives at the end of your sidewalk. So there's a row of townhouses, and then at the end of the townhouses, there's this little sidewalk area with some bushes, and he told Emmett that there's a snake that lives in there. And so Emmett comes to me, this is last week or the week before, and he's like, Dad, I gotta tell you something. He whispers in my ear, there's a snake that lives down the sidewalk. I was like, oh, really? Did you see the snake? No. Really? So there's a snake that lives in there? Yes, I'm serious. And he's famous for that. No, I'm serious. Well, who told you there's a snake? Well, so-and-so told me there's a snake. Oh, okay. So if there's a snake there, you might live a little differently, right? Our key thought for this series is this. If you're taking notes, write this down. A lie, oh, by the way, if you're new here, I am not Jeff Hung. And this sermon is not touchy-feely, although it might be a little touchy-feely towards the end. But totally my fault. I messed up with the bulletin communication this week. Jeff will be speaking next week. So in your notes, you might have to write these down. There's no outline here this morning. But we talked about this last week. A lie believed as truth will affect you as if it was true. A lie, if it's not true, if it's believed, will affect you as if it was true. There's no snake that lives down there at the end of the sidewalk. But if you believe that there's a snake down there, Emmett treads a little more carefully when he goes around that bush because he thinks a snake might come out and bite him. Probably a harmless snake even if it did. But there's no snake. It was just made up. One of the most common lies that God's children believe is this. This is just the way I am. I can't change. I've tried it before, it didn't work out. Or I just can't change in this particular area of my life. And so with that in mind, let's let God's Word speak to us this morning. Notice what the Apostle Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3 and 4. Let these words soak in as I read them out loud to you. For though we live in the world, we do not, say it out loud, we do not. That's pretty serious, right? In our day, right now, everybody understands something about war because for most of your life, young people, our country's been in war at some time. We do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with, Christians, are not the weapons of the world. They're not bombs and bullets and body armor. On the contrary, they have divine what? Power. Divine power to do something in your life to change everything. They have divine power to, say it out loud, demolish strongholds, to tear down strongholds. Now, what is a stronghold? The word comes from the Greek word, get ready, Wu-Wei. Do you know the word? Offhand? You don't know?
No.
You don't have
I'm only asking the taxi.
Akruma. Okay? Akruma. It means to fortify. Okay? The verb means to fortify. The noun means a strong castle, a fortress. Literally, it's a prison locked by deception. A prisoner. A prisoner that is locked in four walls. The castle is built up, and I'm locked in. Right? That's a stronghold. You understand that even in English, right? In English, in a war type setting, we might, on this hill, we're going to set up a stronghold so that the other army can't come through. We're going to set up a stronghold. It's good in that sense, but if you're locked in it and you can't get out, it's not good. That's the way Paul's using it here. So many people, they're prisoners of a lie. We have all, as a matter of fact, been prisoners to that. So it's kind of like a lot of beautiful women who are skinny. I know, you just curse those women in your heart, some of you. They look in the mirror and they see themselves as fat. I'm so fat. No, you're skinny, actually. But no, I'm so fat. And you can say all day long, you're not fat. Yes, I am. You're not fat. Yes, I am. No, really, you're not fat. You're skinny. No, really, when I look in the mirror, I see myself as fat. And they honestly believe they're fat. They're a prisoner locked in deception. Now, guys are the exact opposite. Guys look in the mirror and they're like, yeah, I'm buff. Your buddy's like, dude, no, you're not. No, seriously, I'm buff. You know, look at this. Dude, no, seriously, you're not. Man, I look really good. No, seriously, like, I remember working at this camp, the camp that Laura and I met at, and I remember there was a couple, Kyle and Amy. Laura probably remembers this. And they're kind of a GQ looking couple. And I remember there was a supervisor on the island, the camp that we worked at, and he really had the hots for this other girl. Now, this guy was like a 6, okay? Not like bad to look at, just kind of like most of us, okay? Like most of us, just kind of a 6. The girl that he liked was like a 9.5, okay? Now, generally, Laura, this is one of Laura and I's most favorite things to do. We love to couple watch. People watch in general is fun, but couple watching is great. So here's what you do, and try this. Go out on a date. Husbands, take your wife out and watch couples and see how many of them don't match. They almost always match, you know? So it's like Jeff and Christine, you know, great looking couple, great match, you know, Hong and Leisha, you know, Steve and Sherry. You know, generally couples, they just kind of match, you know? But this poor guy, he didn't get it, you know, he was just a 6. And I remember so distinctly Amy, you know, and I got it finally, you know, I got it. Here I am, a college guy, I didn't get this before. And finally she says, look, you know, he's going over the pedigree. I mean, you can't skip over levels, you know, if you're a 6, maybe get a 7. You know, you don't see too many 6s with 10s, you know? And if you do, there's normally some reason. It's not their looks. Maybe something that they have, power, money, or whatever. But generally, you don't see a mismatch. Let's look at several strongholds that may apply in our lives. Just like if you're that 6 and you're stuck and you're trying to get that 10. You know, maybe, I mean, I feel like that. Granted, there's times I look in the mirror and I've been like, man, why wouldn't all these girls want to, you know, like me? And then, but I couldn't get dates, you know, in college. And then finally Laura said yes, and the light bulb just came on, And so I can relate. I always say I married up.
Score!
Score. Touchdown. Touchdown. Now let's look at several of these strongholds. And so you might say, as we go through this, you might say, I relate to that. I struggle with that. And I want you to be real honest as we look at these. You don't have to raise your hand and say, amen, that's me. But if you want to really get serious about these, you might say, that's me. Ed, that's me. Yes, this is potentially a stronghold, an area where my mind is locked in. So let's look first. The first stronghold. I'm not sure why this isn't working, guys. Is it blinking when I press it?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right, now it's working.
You find it wrong place.
Oh, maybe it's too far.
Maybe.
It's not working now. Go back. Oh yeah, move that out of the way. There we go. Okay, I don't know if that's working or not. Anyway, financial. All right, financial. And so you might say, well, I've never been good with money. Or you might say, in terms of money, where did it go? Or you might say, money, it's gone. Or you might say something like, I just can't live on a budget. Man, I've talked to numerous people. When I talk to them, I go, well, are you budget? Do you have a budget? No, I can't. I'm not like that. Oh, so you're just unwise. Just not a good steward. Or I'm always worried about money, or I can't get out of debt, or there's never enough. So maybe some of you, the stronghold in your life has to do with money. If you're in 6th grade, it probably isn't you yet, but there might be another stronghold, and it might be this one. Relational. The relational stronghold, in which a person might say, well, I could never have a good relationship. And maybe if you're that 6, yeah, you might say, well, I'll never have that 10, but there is somebody that'll be a 10 in your eyes. And generally, when it's the 6 that's married to the 6, they think they're 10s. And that's exactly how it should be. That's exactly how it should be. Or you might say, I'll never get married. Or if you're married, you might say, man, my marriage is not very good. It kind of stinks. It's always going to stink. Or I'm not very affectionate. Or I just can't open up to people. I'm just not very relational. And it's true to some extent. Some people are more outgoing, more relational, more open. Some people are less. And generally, if you're married, there is some opposite there. If you were at the retreat this summer, you met Dr. Mook and hopefully his wife Nancy. And right after the retreat, they got very sick for a number of weeks. And it was very bad. And but afterward, they could kind of laugh about it because Nancy, her problem was this serious infection where she couldn't hear. It was like a serious ear infection where she literally lost like 90% of her hearing. Dr. Mugg, it was his throat. And he couldn't talk. And for 3 weeks he couldn't talk, his wife couldn't hear, and they joked how that's the perfect marriage. She can't hear anything, he can't say anything. It's great. So it's kind of funny after the fact. But would you pray for them with me? Because they are in California right now. They just left. Or maybe they leave in the morning. 15th. Tomorrow's the 15th. And this week is their big final interview for a position out there in California. So pray for them. Those of you who met them, you know they're just wonderful people. Or for maybe some of you, it's a habitual thing. I'm just going to point this up and just click it. So... oh, there we go. Habitual. And so maybe it's eating, or maybe it's not eating. Some kind of bad habit. For some, it's looking at things that you shouldn't look at. And it's usually thought of that's a guy problem, but it's much more and more a female problem as well. We look again and again and again, and we tell ourselves, well, I'm going to stop, I'm going to quit, and then you don't, or you can't. Maybe you're addicted to some kind of chemical. Maybe it's alcohol, drugs. Pain medication is huge. Hog and I were talking about that last night, somebody that he knows, or a story that he heard. That's a huge problem right now. It's a huge problem in high schools. It could be that you smoke. It could be, this is hard for me now, I'm stepping on my own toe right here, caffeine. It could be Starbucks, or whatever, It could be lying, stealing, cheating, on and on. Some kind of habit that you know maybe you're not supposed to be doing. It's breaking your relationship with God. It's a barrier between your relationship with God and maybe other people in all likelihood, and it's become a stronghold. Here's the good news. God can set you free. Good news this morning is if you are that person and you feel like I haven't been able to change or I can't change, You're stuck. God can set you free. Jesus said, who the Son sets free, he is free indeed. Paul said in Galatians 5, it was for freedom that Jesus set you free. And this morning, you can be set free. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But let's look at a couple more strongholds. Mental strongholds. Someone say, I just have a bad attitude. Don't nudge your neighbor, Parent, don't, look sternly at your kid. That's right. How many times have I told you got a bad attitude? Yeah. But some of you have just accepted the fact that, I am just grumpy. I just cannot talk to people before 7 o'clock in the morning. Really? Well, if you got to be at work at 7, that's a problem. Or I just see life from a negative perspective. Here's a good one. I'm just a critical person. Now, I have thought at times, now Elder Jeffrey, don't say amen too loud. I have thought in the past that I had the spiritual gift of criticism. And especially like with your boss or like with people that are your spiritual authority. And and that's not healthy. That is not who I am. That's not who I am. And by God's grace, this is being applied to my life too. But maybe you're stuck in that. Maybe I'm just grumpy in the morning, or I just cuss. It's just who I am, man. Deal with it. I'm just gangsta like that. I have lots of respect for Eminem. Okay, in the sense that he is amazingly talented. Amazingly talented. He was on Sunday Night Football last week. I don't know if any of you saw it. No, it was college, wasn't it? It was college. It was Saturday Night Football kickoff thing. Did anybody see that, Eminem's interview there? Well, they're interviewing him on this show. So it's like, I can't remember the two guys, right? But it's like it's the CBS football on Saturday night. None of you know what I'm talking about, maybe home.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like the big college football game of the week. And whoever, I think it's Brent Musburger and whoever the other guy is. Anyway, even Brent's kind of big, but the other guy's really big. Eminem's like this tiny guy. I don't know if you know how small he is, but compared to those guys, he's really short. And so he's there, and he's unveiling this new music video thing, and he's spaced out. I'm not kidding. This is on live television. This is huge event, and he's just totally spaced out. And I remember watching this interview of him when he got clean. So he got clean, and then he couldn't rap anymore. Because he learned to do all this when he was all high and drunk and on drug. He had serious drug addiction. And so, but when I saw that, I thought, either he's acting like this on purpose, or man, he's he's jacked up again, man. It's just spaced out. They're asking him a question. He's like, I don't know. Literally, this is live. This is huge. He's about to unveil this big thing, and he's like, so what are you most excited about? About unveiling this new CD? And he's like, it's done. My respect level just went way down. So maybe you think, well, I just cuss. I tried to stop. It's just the way I was raised. It's just the way I am. I'm just straight up gangsta. I'm glad, that I'm in a youth group where it's not so much that. I kind of came out of that sort of lifestyle, kind of, but some of you might struggle with some kind of mental stronghold. A couple more, real quick. The next stronghold is spiritual. And you might say, well, I'm on fire for God one day, and then I'm lukewarm the next. I can't seem to have a consistent spiritual life. I promise I'm going to read my Bible every day, and then I make it a couple weeks, or I make it a couple days, and then I don't pick up my Bible anymore. And I just can't change. I just can't become that spiritual person that I want to be, or that I believe I'm supposed to be. So maybe if you're honest, maybe it's some kind of spiritual stronghold. And one more. Maybe for some of you it's a physical stronghold. So when I do that, man, just click her away. All right, go back. Spiritual stronghold. Isn't there a physical one?
No.
There's no physical?
No.
You guys are pretty sharp back there. That's my fault. Anyway, maybe you would say, I just don't like the way I look. I'd change 1,000 things if I could. When I was a teenager, I just thought if I could just shave a little size off that nose right there, man, that would be a beautiful nose. And I thought, man, if I could just tape this ear right here. Just tape it. I really thought, when I was like 14, I could just tape it back when I sleep at night. Maybe it'll grow a little more consistent. I just thought that there's a few tweaks. And I didn't really believe in God, but I was just like, God, there's just a few little tweaks, just a few little things, And then I'd be really, maybe a 7. But maybe you think, man, I'd just change a bunch of things. Or for me, I see people with hair, and I get upset. I get bitter when I see people with hair because I've got hair in my ears, but I don't get it growing on my head. I'm serious. I went to get a haircut the other day, and I've been going to the same place for like 10 years. And I swear the barber spends more time around my ears these days than he does up top. We joke about it now. I'm like, man, there's not much work on my head these days. And he's like, yeah. Vietnamese guy, awesome guy. If you're looking for a new barber, the Vietnamese place right next to Loti, the little barber shop in there. I've been going there for like 10 years. Love it. Awesome. Bao, man, he's awesome. Or maybe it's I just can't exercise. Maybe some of you have a physical stronghold and your spiritual enemy continues to tell you this is just the way you are, you can't change. And if it's your nose, you're pretty much stuck with it. Okay? Pretty much stuck with it. But there's a lot of things you can change. And all of a sudden, after believing that long enough in a sense, we're saying to God, God, even you can't change me. Even you can't change me. This is just the way I am. What kind of bigger insult could we give to the God who created us than to say, God, you're just not big enough. You're not able enough to change me. This is just the way I am. But with the power of God, He can change anything in you. Catch this, not your nose or your hair, but He can change anything in you that is not like Jesus. And He wants to. He wants to do it in some of you today, this morning, in these next few minutes. So what we're going to do now, we're going to look at a simple strategy. And if we start by surrendering our hearts, surrendering our lives to Jesus and the power of God, if we start there and apply these principles of God's Word, these are truth. This is the truth of God that He's revealed to us. He can and will set us free. So here are 3 biblical thoughts that will help you get moving in the right direction. Number 1, capture wrong thoughts. So write that down. Number 1, if you're taking notes. Capture wrong thoughts. The first thing we're going to learn is this. By the power of God, we capture wrong thoughts. We capture wrong thoughts. 2 Corinthians 10:5 says this. We demolish. Say that with me. We demolish. Man, that's like demolition. I met with a pastor friend of mine in the area for lunch the other day, and he went on a sabbatical. He had an 8-week sabbatical. What did you do during your sabbatical? He said, man, I demolished my kitchen and totally redid it. Wow. I just love demolishing. I don't know if any of you have done this before, but I used to do remodeling. My Uncle Dan had a company called Dan's Remodeling Service. And when I was a teenager, I wasn't yet 16, so I was like 15. No, yeah, I was. I came back from Georgia during the summer, so it was like my junior year, and when I was in high school, and I worked for him. And the thing that I loved best was taking the sledgehammer. And it's like this is someone's kitchen wall, and just boom, just knock down that wall, man. Boom. Now the terrible part was then you got to clean it up, and then you take all things out to the dumpster and everything. But it's so fun to tear down walls. I know, ladies, you're like, that's nuts, but anyway. So Paul says, in the same way, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought. We take captive, we take it from over there, and we bring it right in to here. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. To make it, say it with me, to make it obedient to Christ. Now, the lie says you can't. You are just that way. You can't change. That's just the way you are. You're just grumpy. You just speak in those ways, etc., etc., But the truth is, We have some weapons. They're not the same weapons that the war does battle with. We have some weapons that are effective for demolishing strongholds, for bringing them down, and to take captive, take those thoughts that are over there, bring them in here, and make them obey Jesus. That's possible, or this is a lie. Either that is possible, what Paul is saying is true, and is possible, and can be applied in your life, or it's a big hoax. I tend to believe that it's true, and it's been true in my life. Anything that is outside of God's truth, we grab it, we take it captive, we make it a prisoner. We make it obedience to Jesus. We do not allow any thought that is inconsistent with God's Word to live on in our minds. We take it captive. Now, let me just say this real quick. It is impossible to do that all the time. Or then we would be perfect. And we're just not going to be perfect yet. Okay? And so let me just start off by saying this, just a little caveat off to the side to say, I believe the reason why that's not possible is because that forces us to depend not on our own ability to do it, but on God's. And it constantly draws us back to Him. Our inability, His ability. Our insufficiency, His full sufficiency. Our lack of power, His awesome power. And so we can't do this perfectly. That doesn't mean that we give up, and it doesn't mean that it isn't possible. Let me explain it like this. Early on in our marriage, when Laura and I would go out to eat, I would ask her a similar question as many of you husbands have asked your wives. And guys, this is a question that you're going to ask a young lady at some point. Maybe you've already asked a young lady if you've gone to a homecoming and there's a meal involved, or you go to a prom or something like that. And the question is something like this. Honey, we're going to go out to eat tonight. Where would you like to go? Wherever you want to go. Well, no, where do you want to go? No, really. I want to take you out. Okay, I've saved up $15 here. We can go wherever you want for $15. Anywhere, just name it. Where do you want to go to eat? I don't care. Well, if you go to the wrong place, you know she cares. Yeah. If you go to the wrong place, you know. But over the years, I've learned what she likes. I've learned how to ask better questions and to be more patient and loving and not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. None of us, husbands especially, long way from it. But usually, I have more thoughts that are captive to Jesus that are not captive when Laura and I are going out to eat. Because now I know her a little bit better. I kind of know the things she likes. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'm making suggestions. I'm throwing things out there. I'm not saying, hey, where do you want to go? Just name it. Because I know the answer. That's the What do you think about this? Make some suggestions. I'm trying to be a little more loving husband, a more sacrificial husband. It's not about where I want to go, trying to go where she wants to go. And so whenever your mind says, I cannot overcome this addiction, capture that thought. When your mind says, that's just the way I am, capture that thought. Bring it back. Make it obedient to Jesus. No, that is not. That is not the way God made me as a child of God. No, I'm going to bring that back. What does God have to say? Paul was so brilliant at this. And yes, he was the Apostle Paul. The light flashed. He saw Jesus. That hasn't happened to us. I understand that, right? But he was brilliant at this. From a prison, waiting possible execution, he said this, Philippians 4:8. This is so practical when you're having that brain lie tension. The lie's in front of you. Your mind is drawing you away from the truth. And you break out Philippians 4:8. And Paul says, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, say it out loud. Meditate on those things. We are really good at meditating on things. We just meditate sometimes on the wrong thing. Yesterday morning, Elijah's third game, he missed his second game. It's his second game of the season. He was out sick last weekend, and man, I am meditating. I'm thinking about all the things that I want to see my son do. Yeah. And parents, you've been there, right? Maybe it's a piano recital or a violin or a sports competition, or a score on a test that you want to see, right? And you're meditating on, what it should be, or what you want it to be, or what you think your child should be like, or whatever. We're meditating on it, and God's saying, look, I want you to meditate. I want you to think about things that are true. What's true? Things about God are true. His goodness, things are, and my true self is true. So, I'm really not so good at that. Okay, yeah, this is where I should be. Or, man, I really messed up on that. That's my fault. I need to take ownership of that mistake. That's